Hi, Maddie. Thanks very much for coming on the show today. For everyone that's listening and everyone that's watching, obviously wants to know a little bit more about yourself. So just give everybody a little bit of introduction into yourself, what you do in terms of the world of cycling, and just so we go, give us a bit more of a overview of yourself.
Sure. I'm a road cyclist mainly, but I also love doing hill climbs. It's hill climb season at the moment. Um, yeah, I got into cycling through hill climbing. That was the first sort of racing I did, and it's great, just like intense, just riding as fast as you can up a hill. Um, yeah, and now I've kind of moved into kind of a bit more road cycling this year. So I've been doing the national races. Got my Cat 1 license this year, which was a big goal of mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially, I just love getting on my bike. I love cafes and just being out in nature and seeing things and getting to the top of a hill and seeing a nice view. So
Yeah,
yeah, just
very good.
just yeah, love cycling.
What got you into cycling in the first place? You've been cycling most of your life, or was there other aspects of sport that you were involved in before you got into cycling?
Yeah, I think I was one of those kids that just always loved bikes. Like I'd see someone on a bike and I'd be like, I want that. So my mum got me a bike when I was about 3 with like the tassels and the basket on the front, and yeah, I just go down the lane, up and down the lane, and then my as I got a bit older, my brother outgrew his bike, but I wasn't quite big enough. But I'd jump on it, give it a go, and I'd have to kind of fall off onto a slope or jump off to get off the bike. So yeah, quite used to having oversized bikes. Yeah, kind of just chuck myself in the deep end. And I lived on a hill, so I'm quite familiar with walking and cycling up hills. Um, yeah, and then after that, yeah, I just kind of cycled to school, cycled to uni on my bike. I got into triathlon at uni, and that's kind of where that really kind of grew. I loved all aspects: swimming, running, cycling, but cycling was something that I was kind of just naturally uh, quite good. I think it's because I've probably been doing it all my life. Um,
Mm.
yeah, cycling was something that just seemed to click a bit more. Yeah, when I started doing some hill climb races, I won the urban hill climb, which was a huge surprise to me. I was like, what? Standing on a podium, first ever podium on the top step. I was like, this is surreal. And that's when I was like, maybe I'll focus on cycling and do less triathlon. It was also just trying to get a bit more of a work-life balance, having 3 sports compared to one. I was like, I'll be able to do a bit more other things with my time. So yeah, that was where I shifted into cycling.
That's good. So it's generally your favorite discipline when it came to triathlon as
Yeah,
well?
I enjoyed it the most. I seemed to do better in that, like kind of be the fastest or second fastest in that category, whereas my run and swim were very kind of in the middle.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I was getting faster at swimming and running, but the bike was just always pretty strong. So
Yeah, great.
yeah.
And like when you were younger, were your family quite sporty as well? They're quite active.
We kind of went on walks and stuff like that. I was a gymnast when I was little, so that was kind of my own crazy ambition. Um, like my family were a little bit sporty, but I was definitely the more sporty one out of everyone. Um, yeah, so yeah, I think yeah, I was kind of always just the one running around like a bit of a headless chicken, with loads of energy. And then my mum was like, right, we're taking you to gymnastics. So you can use your energy in a positive way. So I was lucky that my mum was like encouraging and took me to gymnastics like 4 or 5 times a week. So yeah, I had a really early entry into sport from that. And then at school, I was just kind of doing every sport I could. I always loved PE. Um, and yeah, I'd try and get involved. I'd like play sport with the boys, to be a complete goal hanger, um, which I could get away with in primary school, not so much in secondary school. Um, yeah, and I was just always obsessed with just running around and having lots of fun. So yeah, I've
Good.
always been quite sporty. Yeah.
Yeah. When you went to university, what university was that? Was that quite centered around sport as well? Was it encouraged while you were at that university?
Yeah, Exeter University. Lots of people know it is quite good for sport. I was actually, in the first couple of years, I was just enjoying uni life. It was my final year of uni. I was like, I really want to do something while I've got got my final chance. So I did a year abroad in
Mm.
France. So I came back. I was like, right, I want to make sure I really do this year well. And that's where I was like really going to all the sport clubs, all the societies, be like, right, what do I really want to do? And yeah, I got really drawn to triathlon. They were really welcoming, and I'd been running a lot in France. That was when I started to run. I'd swam quite a lot, like just for leisure, and I've always liked cycling. So I was like, I like the mishmash of the three. Um, yeah, and I actually wish I did more cycling while I was in France, because I look back now and I'm like, oh, it's literally the
Yeah,
mountains in the background. I was in Grenoble, just like right
amazing.
next to the Alps, and it's like, wish I'd gone and explored a bit more back then, but still nice just cycling around the city.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I mean, Exeter, I'm from Plymouth myself originally. So you got a great
Mm,
Dartmoor on your
oh,
doorstep to, good playground to get training and cycling
yeah,
around Exeter for sure. So that's
yeah.
good. And what led you eventually down the route to focus more on cycling, and what opportunities did you feel open up? Did you just start doing races based on, just enter them for fun and then seeing how you're getting on, or
Yeah,
was there anybody guiding you in that way?
I entered some crits. Like, some of my friends were like, "Oh, you're good at cycling," and the cycling club I was in, Lee Valley Cycling Club in London. They're
Yeah.
kind of out towards the east, uh, and they just kept bugging me, being like, "Oh, I can't believe you do triathlon. You need to quit that." And they're like, "Come on, let's go to a crit." And they were actually really good. They had a local, like, a club crit, so it was really like not stressed at all. We even just chucked in with the men, and it was like, and yeah, the women all got their separate win, obviously, even though we were going around with the men. And yeah, it's really nice. I crossed the line literally like neck and neck with someone, but I just beat them. They were like, "Oh, we're not sure." We're like, and then someone was like, we're pretty sure it's you, Maddie." They were
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all like debating it, but yeah, because we didn't know one took like a video, so we were all just like debating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the win. That was my first win, and then that made
Well done.
me think, oh, maybe okay, I'll do a couple of crits. And they were at Hog Hill, which has a little bit of a hill in it, so I always thought, yeah, that plays to my advantage. Yeah, and I was just doing that while I was also trying to do a lot of my triathlon training. I was doing age group stuff back then,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was actually just good, really good training. That was how I saw it, and I always thought, oh, I don't know if I could race. Like, triathlon's very safe in comparison, but
Mm.
yeah, I slowly kind of just was like, but this is what I want to wake up. When I wake up, that's what I want to go and do. I want to get on my bike. Um, so I just had to face the realization that that was what I was gonna focus on, and yeah, it's been
Yeah.
quite simple.
It's really good because obviously I mean, I live in London now, so you've got the Lee Valley outdoor cycle track. They do a lot of crits and stuff like that
Yeah.
around there, which is good. What obviously I've done triathlon before in the past, and I've never been a road racer, but I enjoy a lot of sporty. Like you just said, the transition of when you do triathlon is quite safe because you have to keep a certain distance. You can't do any drafting or anything like that. So you generally feel a little bit more comfortable. Where when you're road racing and you're around a lot of people, I've not jumped into crit racing. It doesn't really appeal to me in terms of being
Yeah.
really open to some crashes. But what was that transition like for you to kind of get into that initially in that phase, but then going into doing other races? Did you find that quite intimidating, or was that quite a
I the
easy?
first the first few I actually did winter crits, so there's like less people, and lots of people say, don't do that. You want to just go straight in. But actually, I liked just having literally one of my first crits was like after the Lee Valley one, 5 people. It was just really chill, and I was like, I'm glad I actually did that. And then yeah, then there was 20, and I was like, oh, there's a lot more wheels. And I'm just one of these people, because I've been from a safe background, that I'll just sit at the back and then I'll go in,
Mm,
and I'll just be like, right, I'll do 5 minutes where I'm in the wheels, like just at least do 5 minutes. I'm like, right, that's enough. I'm tired now. Like, I've done enough focusing, and I'll go back. I'll just sit at the back again, and then I'll try and get back in. So it's just doing it at your own stage, at your own pace. Like, there's
mm,
no point trying to like be like, oh, well, I need to sit in the peloton the whole time. If you're not comfortable there, you don't
yeah.
have to be there. Like, luckily, because I had a lot of power from triathlon, I could just sit at the back and like lose wheels and get back on. I
Mm,
still had that power, and I had quite a good VO2 max, so I could just kind of power back on when needed to. But yeah, the better I've got, the more I've learned that actually just staying in as long as possible is actually so much easier, saves so much energy. So yeah, it's just easing in and not being like I have to do what they're doing. Just I've just realised I've just got to take it at my own pace, and that's been really helpful doing that.
Yeah. So if anybody's not, if you giving me advice of doing crit racing, I've never done one in my
Yeah.
life. What would you advice be to me starting out, or someone else listening if they were looking to, start crit
um,
racing going forward?
like I think what's really nice is going out. So like Lee Valley Club, we used to go around the. It's confusing because it's also called Lee Valley, like the velodrome. There's the track
Yeah.
there, but even going out with a club, and I'd go out with the
Mm.
men, and they go so fast, and just getting used to going around that track fast in a group is really good because then you're like, oh, there's someone right next to me, and oh, I can't pedal around that corner, and so you start watching what you can and can't do. Like oh, that corner's quite tight. Oh, I might not pedal. Uh, Also, there's different crank lengths, so sometimes you can. I can get away with a bit more pedaling than some of the other guys. Um, and yeah, just like I just do it, getting familiar with a few of the circuits. Like I'd go to Hog Hill and just like even before I'd
Mm.
race, I'd just go around the circuit. Ian Watson in London does a lot of before the crits for women mainly. He'll just do an hour of like skills, and it really does help. It warms you up, and you get a bit more comfortable being like close to a wheel. Like I even I've gone around Regent's Park with a mate, just like shoulder to shoulder, like handlebar to next to handlebar, and that was great because then when someone is right like up in your grill, you're like, oh, you're not freaking out quite as much. So yeah, it's just getting as much when you're not racing, just getting more as much exposure in your training to kind of be near people, be on those wheels. And then yeah, the first race, I'm definitely someone that would be like, oh, I want to find with like fewer entries. It's quite hard in the men's scene, like pretty much always
Yeah.
just full fields. Um, yeah, I think my advice would be if you're going to do like if you were keen on doing road races, I find the hillier ones are better because things string out. So you have moments where you're in a peloton, kind of the first bit, then it strings out, and you're like, oh, I can rest a bit, and I have to focus on the wheels. So I actually prefer them, especially while I was getting into it, because I was like, oh, after about half an hour, it's all strung out. You're in a reduced bunch. You don't
Yeah.
have to focus as much, and yeah, don't have to watch out for potholes quite as much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That is very true. The intensity of being in a group for a long period of
mm,
time. I know it's not very similar to crit racing, but when doing sportifs, Ride London here,
mm,
pretty much on the wheel in big packs,
yeah,
it can be, even though it's a sportif, people can go pretty intense. Where in comparison, I did the dragon ride this year. I love climbing, very similar to you, where that
yeah,
way you just get gaps and then
yeah,
you're on your own for a period of time and then you're with groups. It's just kind of nice because you can really focus on yourself and riding rather than
exactly.
it being quite an intense looking at the wheel for 4 hours
Yeah,
or so while you're doing it. So
yeah.
that's good.
Some people can
Yeah.
just do it. I know people that just straight away love it and can just get. But for me, I'm like, I need that break in and out. I prefer that. Um, yeah, but I'm building it up as the more I race. So
Yeah.
just getting.
And have you transferred into, or how have you found that sort of transferred into just riding on the road? Imagine you do quite a bit of training on the
Mm,
road, but
mm.
imagine the bike handling skills that you've learned from crit racing has that really helped you as a rider as well?
Yeah, yeah. Corners and descending. I'm definitely like I used to like create big gaps, and now I'm like, oh, like sometimes I do. Like I still sometimes do
Mm.
it if I'm not focused or just if
Mm.
I'm just having a chill day. But yeah, I definitely have so much more confidence. Yeah, and it's slowly building. Like I did have a little bit of a spill, like a little crash, had some like stitches in my elbow, and that was just going through a pothole that I just didn't see. I'd had a bit of a bad night's sleep, so I hadn't slept so well. So I think that contributes to me not
Mm.
really like watching the road. Um, but so that like not my confidence, but it took me about 2 months to probably get fully back to being confident, and it was just I still do it scanning the road for potholes,
Yeah.
and like I'm even getting laser eye surgery because I was like I don't want because it's part of it's my vision as well on the bike. I was like I just want to be able to see as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get like lenses in your glasses as well to help see. But yeah, I think weirdly the crash actually helped build confidence, because I almost needed one to happen to see what it was like. And I was like, when it happened, I was like, oh, this is just it. This is it. This is just what happens. And I was like, oh, I'm not so, I don't know. I was like actually less fearful. It sounds crazy. But for me, I just actually kind of needed one to just be like, oh, this is what can happen. Obviously, I was lucky that it was just a few stitches, but yeah, yeah. But you do just build up your confidence. Going around a corner, a lot of people can overcook it, and yeah, you just slowly build up and just maybe go a bit slower, and knowing the roads help. Like I always try and do
Yeah,
recce's on my for my road races, and that always gives you an advantage, because then you know how fast you can go around stuff. So just
yeah,
trying to be more
it's really good.
prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes, obviously, depending on the nature of the crash, but
Mm.
you can sometimes feel that you're cycling, your confidence when you're riding you can get overconfident and feel like everything's just amazing, and so a crash sometimes just knocks you down a peg or two. Just make sure you're just a little bit more of concentrating that little bit more
Yeah.
on the rides as well. And have you seen any crashes when you've been doing the crit racing, or has that been generally crash free? Has that been okay normally?
My first ever road race, my like really close friend at the time, like we were living in London and cycling a lot together, she crashed. I didn't see it. Well, we had a little spill at the beginning. Both of us crashed, and then later on she crashed on her own. She was trying to chase back onto peloton, really horrible roads, went into like a rut in the road, and
Oh
just
no.
apparently it was a horrible fall. Someone saw it, and yeah, she was in the
Yeah.
hospital, and jaw, like had to get a jaw
Oh bloody
like
hell, yeah.
metal in it, elbow, metal in her elbow.
Mm.
That was really hard, being my first ever road race, and like I almost got PTSD, even though it wasn't me that it happened to. It's
Yeah.
almost, it felt psychologically, it was really hard because it hadn't happened to me, but I could just imagine it, and I was repeating over and over, and I was like, gosh, what happens if that happens to me? And that's why when like I had my own crash, it was about 2 years later I had my own crash, and I was like, okay, it wasn't as bad as hers, but I was like, oh, okay, now I've seen it. Now I know what it's about a bit more. And yeah, obviously,
Mm.
a lot of it's just luck of the draw, and that's part of the
Yeah.
racing. And
Yeah.
yeah, um, and actually,
She,
yeah,
she all okay now? She back riding
yeah,
still? Back out
she's
again? Yeah.
back into racing, so
That's good.
didn't scare her
Yeah.
off too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how have you found like the safety around crit racing on the road? Because I know I've spoken to other people recently that scene in the UK now has changed quite a bit. It can be, especially with more cars on the road and maybe less
Mm.
finances around closed roads and stuff like that, can be a little bit more unnerving maybe for the riders in terms of safety, depending on the route and the environment that you're doing. How have you found that yourself?
Um, yeah, again, I think it's just always just going by what works for you. Like, don't, yeah, and like, don't get
Mm.
overconfident. Like,
Yeah.
don't feel like, oh, I'm not going to check over my shoulder because I can't be bothered to do that. Like, yeah, when I lived in London, I used to get a sore neck I used to commute through London, and I'd get a sore neck by
Mm.
how much I'd be checking over my shoulder. But I'd rather do that. I'd rather get a sore neck. I'd rather take extra precautions personally, because I'm like, I don't want to be crashing out in my training.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, more cars. Again, if I just try and listen to, if I'm out on my own, I can hear a car's not giving me space. I will just go through I'll just go in the gutter if I need to. Um, yeah, it can be a bit unnerving. Um, yeah, it does, and it does depend where you live. A lot of the time, for what the right, like I've moved out to Bristol now, and the drivers are, you do get people, you get odd bits of road that are a bit
Mm.
stressful, but they don't seem to mind that much. So if you're most drivers don't mind if you're holding them up as much, or they won't cut you up on a roundabout like I had a few times in London. Um, yeah, people, just the pace of life's a bit different. Um, Still like a busy city, but yeah, generally, um, yeah, in London it's just going out. I went out early a lot just to try and avoid as much of that as possible.
Yeah.
And Sunday traffic's a lot nicer, so yeah, just
Yeah.
or turbo. when you're
I know.
when you're really sick of it, you can always jump on
That's very true. That's also my case. We're always out early, first thing in the morning, or if I go Regent,
turbo.
sometimes I try and get there for 5:30 in the
Yeah,
morning on the
bliss.
in the summer months. So it's good.
Yeah,
So from that position, then obviously in London, and then you said to me that now you just recently signed for Finish Lane RT.
yeah.
And so how did that come about in terms of is this semi-professional, professional now that you're working towards? How does that all come about as you've sort of progressed through the cycling ranks?
So I mentioned Ian Watson before. I was in his development team called Team Watto, based out of London. So I was in that team for 2 years, learnt a lot. They do like Regent's Park sessions on a Thursday as well. So you'd get like skill practice, which is really great for when you're just learning things like trying to pick up a bottle off the floor, or like go through really narrow cones with someone next to you, or just riding two abreast and then opening up and someone riding through the middle, and then you're just like, ooh, and it's like two lines of you and people riding through the middle, and that's terrifying. But you slowly get closer and closer and get more confident. So I did that, rode 2 years with that team, and then when I moved to Bristol, my friend Viv, she's just really big into empowering women, and started up a new team called FDP Racing. So that was the team I was in this season, just gone. And it was brand new women's race team. They did a bit of time trialing before that. This was the first year we did road, and that was like amazing. We went to the national races, doing all of that. And then, because I got my Cat 1 this year, I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. I could stay with the team. But I really, really want to race on the continent. So I actually I applied to Pronoctus, which Finish Line RT. And I was not expecting, I was really like hoping and praying, but I wasn't actually expecting to be offered a spot. But they saw me at some of the crits, and I wasn't always doing the best at the national crits because I was rubbish at clipping in. I just panicked in the first couple of minutes, and then they're like the town centre crits, and you just have to be on the ball straight away, and I'm rubbish at that. But they'd see me trying to like get through the group, so I'd be literally like 80th out of 80 people. And then they'd see me like literally like I'd end up maybe like 20th or 30th or something. So I managed to get through quite a few. And so I talked to them afterwards, and they were like, "Oh, I see you like worked really hard." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I just need a bit more luck and a bit more confidence." So they kind of noticed me a little bit this year, and just for having chats a bit. And I have a good friend who I used to rival at like hill climbs in the team, and she's been a massive inspiration just watching her journey. When I applied, I was like, it's the only team I applied to because I don't really mind staying with FTP, but my goals kind of are relatively big. Like I've always wanted to ride on the continent, so Finish Line RT are applying to Continental. At the moment, there's 3 Continental women's teams in the UK, and that's planning to double next year to 6.
That's fantastic.
Which just kind of shows how much women's cycling is growing. And we've kind of been given the kind of nod that they'll all get in. So it looks like we'll be racing on the continent, which is just mad and it's very exciting. And can't believe I went from just being a little casual triathlete to getting here, which it's always been a dream of mine. But it's amazing. You just got to keep believing. I had a lot of doubts at times, but just kept going. I was like, I'm just going to keep showing up, just get to that start line, and just keep showing up and see where it goes. So.
It's really good. Congratulations. Definitely. Would you say when you have to go through that process, do you have to? Is it almost like applying for a job or sort of more like an audition to try and get in the team? I don't know how like the selection process works now in terms of the finances, and obviously the funding in certain aspects of cycling now has been reduced compared to it was a few years ago. So how did that sort of come about? Did you have to sort of just get an audition and keep applying and just keep asking for opportunities? Or
so you do have to do like a cycling CV when you're applying to teams, which this is the first time I'd ever done one. And you just kind of write down your like best results for the year, and say what type of rider you are. So obviously obviously to me, people that know me, I'm a hill climber. So I just say that's kind of my preference, and that is generally where I'd get results on a hilly course or a course that finished on a hill. That's generally where I placed well. Getting my Cat 1 helped. So cycling CV, and then yeah, a lot of the time it's just having a chat. Like when I was at some of the Nat Crits, I got offered a spot in a couple of the other teams to do like a mid-season transfer, and that was just having a chat to the people there. And I was tempted by it, but I decided to stay with FTP just because, yeah, my heart was quite, yeah, I was quite attached to FTP, and I really wanted to see the season out. It was really hard leaving the team because, yeah, it's just amazing what they've done this year. But yeah, you can just have a chat to people at races. You get to know some of the riders as well, and they'll talk to you and be like, "Oh, this is what our team does. This is what our focus is. You know, this is what they offer," type of stuff. So yeah, a lot of cycling is who you know. So it's just getting just chatting and things kind of yeah, just kind of happen that way. Because I think a lot of why I wanted to go for Pro Noctis because it seemed like their values really were similar to mine. Kind of like results driven, but without the pressure. And like FDP was all about that. It was all about the rider first. That was kind of like their motto. And I was like, yes, like there's no pressure. Honestly, they were just so happy when you did well. But like if you didn't do as well as you wanted, or as people expected, they'd be like, right, what happened? Tell me what happened. Tell me what you want to do next time. They just want to help you. They genuinely want the best for you. And it's like, I put enough pressure on myself that I don't need any more from a team. And yeah, Pro Noctis or Finish Line RT are exactly the same. Yeah, so yeah, obviously there's going to be a lot of pressure, just the fact it's going to be on the continent itself. So yeah, yeah, they're great. Their main sponsor is Pro Noctis, which is a performance management company, and we get kind of a bit of coaching on that. And I think that goes a million miles. Just like the your psychology and your mind is honestly super powerful. Even more when you get older, I think it starts to kind of play on you a bit more. So yeah,
especially with cycling as well, because obviously the frontal lobe cortex is our brain when we're younger doesn't develop. That's the last point to develop, but that's the point that registers fear. So that's why when we're younger
yeah,
we can like just play in the park and not worry about getting hurt.
yeah,
But as we get older, that's developed. So our sense of risk and fear increases. So it gets harder, especially when we're older, to do more extreme sports. Or not that cycling is not an extreme sport, but every sport has a risk in some ways. So it's learning how you can override that or sort of manage the risk well. Do you feel that that's something you're working on and got a good? I suppose crit racing really prepares you for that a lot more
yeah,
than road race, well, especially when you go onto the road, isn't it? Because it's so intense in comparison to road racing that you do have a bit of
yeah,
a break within the ride
mm,
as well. Is that really sort of
yeah,
helps with that side of things?
yeah.
Yeah.
Crits are intense.
Yeah.
And it depends which one. Like Crystal Palace, less intense. Because yeah, if you want one that's less intense, get one with loads of corners. It strings out. But yeah, but road racing does have like its moments of like, especially women's racing. There's moments where we're literally like barely spinning the pedals, just chill out for a bit. So we're like, oh, there's a hill coming. Oh, there's a technical descent coming. So we'll chill out for a bit. So you do have breathers throughout the race. Um, yeah, so it's definitely crit racing is definitely more intense.
That's good. Yeah. And when you got into cycling, was anybody that you looked up into the sport like inspired you to get into cycling itself? Any athletes that you've kind of looked and I know cycling now is more,
Mm,
especially women's cycling, there's more exposure on TV than there
yeah.
was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But is there anyone that's kind of inspired you or looked at your journey and you felt that that's sort of the direction that you want to go in?
I think in terms of, I like to have role models where they're not too far out of reach. It's almost like, oh, if I get my head down, I could potentially be where they are in a few years. So someone like Alice Lethbridge, I knew her from like time trialing, and yeah, now we're like racing alongside each other. And I never in a million years would think that would actually happen. So I just actually just reached out to her on Instagram, was like, what do you do? How did you get as good as you got? And she was like, you got to do this, try this, and gave me loads of recommendations. And then for people like Mary Wilkinson, who's an amazing hill climber, I saw her popping up all the time. And now we chat at the end of races, and she's super lovely, super supportive. An older athlete as well. She's into her 40s now, so like I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting to I'm getting older. Like, am I past it? But then seeing she won like Lancaster GP, and it's just like, what? She can win a national A race, and she's 10 years older than me,
Yeah.
or more. I'm just like,
Yeah.
stop believing in that rubbish. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, having people like that who are older as well just was even more inspiring. And then, yeah, someone in the team that I'm in now, Betsy Jew, like she was she was a great hill climber. We used to rival each other. She's actually been like a huge inspiration for me. Yeah, and yeah, like it's crazy because now I'm racing along a lot of them.
Great. Yeah.
One person who's a bit more ahead of the game was Lizzie Dinan. We had like she's so lovely. She came and just like talked to us, like with the FTP team, and gave us some advice on like
Mm.
nutrition. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have a little stalk of her and like really look at what she's done. I was like, wow, and she's so like, yeah, honest and does things her own way. She was like, well, I'm not going to
Yeah.
overtrain. Like, I really like, I'm good at this session. Da, da, da. And she really like works with a coach, really gets a nutrition on board. And like, that's why
Mm.
she's so good. Like, that's why she gets it right and does so well. And she's like, really skillful rider. So I'm just like, gosh, I want to be like that. Like, I love the
Mm.
skill side of things. And I'm not saying I'm particularly good at it. Still
Yeah.
very much a novice when it comes to cyclocross racing, but yeah, people like that are huge
Yeah.
inspirations.
Especially with her having a family as well and empowering people
Yeah.
to be able to, especially because there's such a
Mm.
stigma, obviously, with females cycling, and you have to choose one
Oh,
professional
yeah.
or be in a family, and there's no reason
Mm.
why everybody can't have a good balance and have those opportunities alongside their chosen career as well. So I think it's a fantastic thing that she's doing to encourage more females into the sport, but also raise awareness of female cycling for other people in the sport as well, not just females, but everybody involved in the sport, men and female. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Do you think there's a lot more, all that support that you've had, that you've reached out to people, is a lot more, it's a good community of other female cyclists that are really helping each other
Yeah.
to their best and encouraging each other, rather than it being, maybe I would imagine, with a competitive nature in certain male dominated sports, is quite like more of a bitter rivalry rather than actually a nice supportive rivalry of encouraging their
Yeah.
friends. I mean, I think that's changing a little bit with certainly the younger athletes coming through. We've seen in the tour
Yeah.
they're a lot more open to just being where they conduct themselves, like Pogacar and Vingegaard and stuff with the rivalry. I think it's just fantastic. It's not bitter where it used to be
Mm.
in the past. If you look back, 10, 20 years ago. So do you feel that within the community of the female cyclists that you're in, that everybody's just encouraging each other to be their best as well?
Pretty much. Yeah, I think whenever I've reached out to someone, they've always just wanted to give me as much advice as they can.
Mm.
Yeah, obviously when you actually get on the start line, there's that like in it for, there's a bit of aggression, and that's just part of
Yeah.
racing. It's something I'm actually terrible at. I'm way too nice. I'm like, yeah, you can go ahead, go in front, whatever. I'm like, oh, I need to be more aggressive. But yeah, it's almost like women's instinct a lot of the time is to care and help people like so much that just like comes in so much, and you can't help. Like I love helping people as well. Anyone reaches out to me, I'm like, oh wow, yes, please. Here's all the advice I can give, and try and make it more as specific as I can to their situation. But yeah, it's generally it's been really nice. Yeah, I think I think COVID was a funny period. Getting back in after that, everyone was really like, but then once we had like halfway through that season, things started settling down and got back
Yeah.
to normal.
Good.
But yeah, even in men's sport, like a lot of the men around me are super supportive. Obviously, you get a bit more vocal. They might get a bit more vocal at races. It's probably because there's more of them, and
Yeah.
it's more. A lot of it is just fear. Like if someone's acting a bit funny in the peloton, people might be like, "Oh, they're being a bit funny." They're just scared. Most of the time, it's just coming out. It's
Yeah. You just don't want to crash,
exactly. So
basically.
I'm
Yeah.
just now I know that I'm like actually just give them benefit of the doubt, and actually it's so much
Yeah.
better for yourself. If you're always
Yeah.
going at people, you're wasting energy. If you
Yeah.
think good, if you're in the peloton and you're thinking good about everyone, you start riding better for yourself. And sometimes you do have to just be like calm it, or like or try and help someone through a situation. Be like, you're right. Do you want to just slot in here? Like it's gonna be all right. You're fine. you know,
Yeah,
like, yeah, but
it's
yeah,
good. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, it's certainly when you do, from my experience, sporties, people do come together if you see someone
yeah,
struggling and
yeah,
have you got any food, you run out of
mm,
water. It's definitely a team sport in
yeah,
that sense as well.
definitely.
That we all forget. So, and we're just going to move on. But when you were getting into hill climbing, then just give us an idea of what were your first sort of hill climbs like, and what kind of climbs you're doing now. Because I know only from my experience of doing, I love climbing hills. I'm from Devon, so I enjoy
Mm,
climbing. I feel that's my best aspect of me as a rider. But
mm.
doing hill time trialing,
Yeah.
I've done a couple with the cycling club and the Tri Club in London, and it's just not a really pleasurable experience. So I don't know how you find it so pleasurable. I'd rather climb within a ride and enjoy it, but trying to,
Yeah, it's different.
So what's your mentality around that? Give us a sense of
Yeah.
how you got to, enjoy that
Um,
Sadie sport so much. So
yeah, I started doing like Mott Street, which is like a 3 or 4, something like 3 or 4 minute climb, and that's yeah, kind of just out going towards Essex on the way out of London. Um, and that one's yeah, that was kind of what I was good at around that sort of duration. Urban hill climb was about just under 2 minutes, quite short. So it was very much a bit more power. But yeah, it definitely helps when you know the hill, you kind of know how to pace it. But it is so different in a hill climb race. The more I've done them, the more I've known, like, actually, I can go harder. Having a power meter on a hill climb bike is probably more important than any other racing because I would start too hard thinking, oh, like, oh, if it's only even a minute and a half hill, you can still go too hard. Like 30 seconds is kind of really like where you can just literally just get it all out, but you still need to
yeah,
hold it in even if it's short. And like the longer the climb, the more you obviously need to hold it back and get close to kind of like your
yeah,
FTP. And there's different bits of terrain. I'm now on Elevate, and the chat is mad. Like they are so specific. They're like, oh, this part is 8%, so I'm going to get to 120% of my FTP, and then this bit gets really steep, so I'm going to go up to 100. It's mad, 150%. They are so specific of what they're going to do on each little bit of the hill, and it's amazing. Like, and they're like, oh, the wind is doing this today, or like the road surface is like this, or there's leaves, so you got to sit down. Like even just like the weight on my bike, and like I used to get loads of
mm,
wheel spin, and it's like, oh, you need to kind of sit back on your wheel, like further back to stop that and smoother. Like I used to be like super choppy getting out the saddle. It's like just go a bit smoother. It might not mean you kind of get that power out quite as much, but you're not going to fall back half a wheel, so it's gonna save you time. Um, yeah, and it is so different. The more you do hill climbs, kind of the more you learn what you can put out, but also you learn what pain is more and more. And I use a lot of positive affirmations. So yeah, I was doing Leaf Hill, and I hate flat bits of hill. Absolutely, like I shouldn't even say that. I struggle with like even saying that word. I'm like, no, no, no. I just struggle a bit more. And a lot of riders are like that because they're like, a hill, it should be steep, it should be hard. But the flat bit in the middle, I was having to go, you're strong, Maddie. Like just repeating, you're strong, you're a strong woman. And like even the word woman, I was like, yes, I'm a woman. And that empowered me and was like, when I felt horrible, like it is temporary, but just repeating you're strong, rather than going, oh, you're rubbish. Because when you do that, you do actually, I feel like you actually genuinely lose strength in your body.
yeah,
Like, so just to tell yourself you're strong, I think you then do actually kind of ride to your ability and ride to what you can do a bit better. Um,
yeah,
yeah, because a lot of it is a mental game. Yeah, you against that hill. Even yeah, I weirdly love steep hills, which other people might be thinking the opposite, going oh, and that might be when they need to go. Come on, you're strong, you can do this.
So you prefer the short, punchy climbs rather than the long, steady climbs?
Any
Would you say that?
anything up to 5 minutes generally. I've got
Yeah,
quite a good 5 minute power. Uh, yeah, so if I'm like reasonably fit, if I'm not that fit or whatever at the moment because I've just come back from a cold, I don't want to do much more than
mm,
2 minutes. But if I'm like
mm,
decent fitness at kind of round my peak, then 5 minutes is like what I'm
yeah,
quite really
yeah,
happy
it's
with.
good. Yeah. And what advice would you give people that want to improve on their climbing? I know a lot of people, that's an area a lot of people, amateur cyclists especially, probably do struggle with a lot, especially now riding. on indoor trainers, obviously you can have the Swift advantage, but most of the clients that I speak to do struggle with just not being dropped on their group ride on whatever climate is. What advice would you give them in terms of improving their climbing ability, and also not just in terms of training, but while climbing as well? What tips would you advise them on?
Do them. Like, part of the reason I was good at hills is because I grew up doing them, and actually I do less hills this year, and I'm losing it.
Mm.
Like, so mad as that is, I'm actually losing it, and it's because I used to go to the Peak District or the Lake District, and I would go for a week or some. I went once for 10 days. That was too long for me. I was broken at the end of it. But it's like it's going to that terrain, facing your fears. Like, I went and did Fred Whitten, and I literally was hyperventilating going up hard not pass because I hadn't done enough hill training, and I still did a great ride. Like, the whole thing, I
Mm.
did pretty speed. Well, I thought it was pretty speedy, considering I hadn't done loads of hill climbing. Um, and yeah, I just like the one thing was like I wish I'd done more. So it's going to do them. And it doesn't have to be an evil hill. Like, I do like hill reps up Belmont Hill, and that's like it's got a flat bit in it, so actually not like, but actually do it. Training my weakness is good. So it's just like go and do hill reps on your own at your own pace, and you will slowly build to be stronger because it's some of it's just getting your muscles used to it, getting those glutes engaged. So you can do stuff off the bike as well. You can do like bridges or kind of crabs or whatever to wake up your glutes. My glutes went to sleep because I was working a horrible full-time job, completely burning out, doing stupid hours, and that's like my glutes just went to sleep for about half the year. So I'd get on the bike and be like, oh, these other muscles are in agony because they're working because my glutes weren't, and I was struggling to get up hills as fast. So yeah, especially when you're seated going up a hill, and if you want to keep getting up them faster, like you need strong glutes, you need a strong core. So you can do that stuff off the bike. Getting to the gym will help, but then also just going out and doing them and pacing well. If you find someone in a group ride that is a similar pace to you going up a hill, like you can just sit on their wheel. Just like, because that's mentally also, even if they're slightly faster or you think they're slightly faster, just like really try and stay on the wheel as long as you can. And then you might just do like the final minute on your own. And it's just like, at least it's like they're waiting at the top slightly less time than you. Most clubs will wait at the top if it's a particularly long climb. They'll wait. So, yeah, I struggle on punchy hills because I'm not actually a puncher. I'm not a punchy person. And when I go out with the fast guys, I'm getting dropped on like some of the punch, like a minute hill. And I'm just having to be like, it's temporary, just go. And I'm like literally sprinting, pretty much sprinting up the hill, like my sprint. So yeah, I'm still getting dropped, believe it or not. Um, yeah, so I know what it feels like. Yeah, and I've had to have people wait for me at the top of it, and then they start going before you've had a break. You're like, wait a minute, I'm hungry. Thank you very much. I've just been gassed, so I haven't been thinking about food, and now I'm hungry, and you're all leaving me. Damn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still getting that. But yeah, it's good to push yourself. Like, I don't mind getting dropped because I'm like, actually, that means I'm working to my limit. Um, yeah, but then other weeks I'll just go for a chill ride, go over group 2 or something, or group 3 even. Like if I want a really chill ride, and just nice to be out, and then you're still getting that exposure to hills as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Very good point. I would say, if you look at, you were mentioning about your job, predominantly most people who ride a bike for fun and not professionally, their job is predominantly sedentary, isn't it? So
yeah,
their glutes are going to be asleep all
yeah,
day. We're sat on them now. So
yeah.
that becomes really a valid point that you just mentioned,
Mm.
that a lot of strength work is something I really am passionate about, scheduling and implementing weight training, working on those muscles to make sure they're engaged, because that's going to be, and your core stability just to keep you nice and stable on the bike to support you as well. Do you do a lot of weight training, land-based training throughout the winter months, and you
I
found
should.
for yourself?
I want to up it. I didn't do much last year. Yeah, I'm not very good around the winter months. I get a lot of colds, and I had long COVID, and so I would have done more, but I was kind of
Mm.
recovering a lot from that. But But yeah, I was still trying to use my kettlebell a little bit. Just having that at home is quite nice when you're like, oh, at least I'll just, it's not even a super heavy one, but I'm like, at least I'll just keep a little bit going. But yeah, I'm actually like trying to up that this year because it's also good for preventing injury. But it does, like,
Yeah,
I do find when I get back on the bike, everything just does feel easier. You just have a bit more functional strength, and yeah, I just find otherwise I am like my energy gets zapped if I don't have that sort of strength in my muscles. I actually find my energy just gets zapped quicker. It's like you need base fitness, but you also need like I think a base or decent base strength to like carry
so
yourself.
you got bigger strength
Mm,
endurance basically, I suppose, a cardiovascular endurance. You've got good strength endurance.
yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
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 kind of need a bit of both.
yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely need to get into
That's
that
really good.
this
Yeah,
winter a bit more.
yeah. And when you're doing your hill reps, is that just one hill you go up and down like 10 times, or do you pick a route where you do maybe a few more hills within that route? You got any particular sort of training sort of sessions that you like to implement?
Yeah, I like variety. So sometimes I don't mind doing like Belmont Hill 5 times. Other times I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to this area, go up that hill, and just change it up.
Mm,
One of the things I like to do is try and do like the first, like depending on the hill, like first maybe like Belmont, I'll do like 3 minutes at this sort of power, kind of like over FTP, maybe like 120% or something, and then the last whatever it takes to get to the top. So I think it's about 40 seconds, maybe no, or maybe close to a minute probably, uh, just as hard as you can. And that was great training because then you're kind of just sat at a certain power trying to get it out, and then you just go for it for the last bit, and that helps with like learning how to pace as well because you know how much you've got
yeah,
left at the end of a hill climb. And mentally, I really like doing that as well, just knowing it's broken up. I'm going to do this at the first bit, and then just go as hard as I can to the brow.
yeah.
Yeah,
And when you train, do you train particularly outdoors with a parameter, or do you train on feel as well? What's your
yeah.
go-to?
Power meter. Generally have a little look at the heart rate and like, oh, I didn't get up to this like over 180. Oh, I probably need. And obviously, it depends on you and your age and how
Mm,
small you are, for example, or quick your blood goes
mm,
around your body. But yeah, if I'm like, oh, I normally get up to this heart rate, I'm like, okay, I need to go harder. Or oh, that's gone up really high, really fast, or I'm not very fit right now, or yeah, starting to feel the fatigue. But yeah, a lot of it you can feel. Like sometimes
mm,
I like the third rep, I'm like, okay, I'm actually feeling good. Then the fourth one feels horrendous, and then the fifth one, you're like, well, it's the last one, so I'm feeling great, um, or rubbish at that point. So yeah, a lot of it is just a bit of a mix of feel, power, and heart rate. Yeah, it's good.
yeah.
Kind of.
I was chatting to someone earlier about feel and numbers, and I suppose when you're riding in a race, probably don't look at your data in terms of power as much. Would that be right? It's mainly more of a training aid, and
Yeah.
then just when you're riding, you kind of know on feel how much you've got, or if you're going too hard and you're pacing. Would that be right? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I used to look at my data too much while in a race and get obsessed about, oh wow, I'm doing so great, and then be like not focused on actually like trying to win or like get in wheels or
Mm,
whatever. And I'm like, actually, yeah, it's better to look after and be like, oh, okay. I actually try and go for the least watts when I'm racing now, which is because I'm trying to save energy until the last kick or whatever.
mm,
But yeah, it's nice to look at heart rate and be like, oh, okay, it, yeah, and yeah, it didn't go that high as, or like the average is pretty low. That means getting fitter every time I'm doing a road race or whatever. Or oh, it's quite high. Am I getting ill, or am I just really unfit at the moment, or I just didn't like that course, or something stressed me out? I don't know. Yeah, it's always good just
yeah,
to I prefer to look at it kind of after. And yeah. I've recently got a coach, so now I'm learning like what I can actually do with the data a bit more. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah. That's good. And when you were doing triathlon, what distance did you compete in triathlon, or events did you do in triathlon? Because a lot of triathlon, when I've done it, it's very more data driven. Where
mm.
because you're on your own, you can just have a bit more time to kind of focus on the numbers a bit more, haven't you? So
I just did standard, like Olympic
mm,
distance, but I didn't have
yeah,
any power.
no,
I would just have my bike computer without any power on it, and I just try and average, because it's generally quite flat, so I'd just be trying to average a certain speed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I was like quite an amateur when I was doing triathlon, and I was more bothered about just getting strong than bothering
Yeah.
about all the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, now
Yeah.
in cycling, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I kind of now have gone all in. The more time you do it, you do start going, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I will get that bit and that bit. And you're like, oh, this is quite useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. I think definitely to be aware of the numbers and using it well, and then obviously depending on
Mm.
making sure you're just enjoying the riding and focused on the ride in front of you as well. So it's a really valuable tool, but used in the right way
Yeah.
as well.
I sometimes
Yeah.
take a month off of data and just don't even put my heart rate monitor on and just
Yeah.
ride,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I'm sick of it. So yeah, it's okay to have a break if you're just like, this is driving me mad.
Yeah. And it's just taking it back to just the
Yeah,
primal aspect of just going out and enjoying a bike ride, isn't
yeah,
it? So
exactly.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And with regard obviously hill climbing as well, there's always a lot of issues. I'm not say issues, but talk around weight. My friend
Yeah.
decided to really get into cycling a couple of years ago and just went really obsessed and wanted to do some really a lot of hill climbing and did the nationals and stuff. But he lost loads of weight, and he was a guy that was you know normally 75 kilos and got pretty much down to like 65 kilos. He looked completely different. But then he realised he was overtraining, he did too much. And but what's your relationship with nutrition on the bike, and how you're managing that with climbing and stuff? And what's your sort of,
Yeah.
strategies that you use for
I
that?
think it's learning what, yeah, because if you get too light, you lose power. Um,
Mm.
so it's learning again what works for you. And a lot of it's actually eating the right food and at the right time. So I don't shy away from, even in hill climb season, I don't shy away from eating decently. Like, um, most of the time I'm actually having to shove food down because I cycle so much in the road season that I'm not even hungry because my stomach shrunk. So I'm like, oh, I'll just keep eating this pasta because I know I need to. But then in hill climb season, you take the training load off, and yeah, you're trying to be relatively light to get up the hill. But the one year that I did try and kind of do intermittent fasting, I struggled a bit with my power, and I was picking up colds too much. So I actually just don't do anything because I find
Mm.
my health is more important and being strong on the bike's more important, and I just focus on what my body needs. Like, I probably the week before I'd just be a bit more mind of like, if I was really into national hill, that hill for nationals, probably the week before I'd be like, right, I'm not going to overindulge. I know a lot of people spend the whole 2 or 3 months, or even the couple of months leading up to it, being like not overindulging and just get really strict. But yeah, it's figuring out what works for you. Like, depends on what you'll do for your job. Like, sometimes you're just so busy in your job, you don't keep track of, like, if you're trying to do your job and cycle, you're not keeping track of what you eat. So yeah, it's just trying to learn what's best for you. Getting lean meats in, like, it depends what, if you're a vegetarian or whatever. But yeah, if you're vegetarian, you've got probably got lower inflammation anyway. But just having things like leaner meats, like lots of like chicken and salmon and stuff like that, which just fills me up. And then I'm not eating loads of cakes and rubbish, which I still have a sweet tooth. So, but I still, at the same time, like, I eat quite a lot of chocolate. Actually,
Yeah.
chocolate gives you a VO2 max benefit. So I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's something that actually I think it helps get oxygen, and just that's just how I'm
Yeah.
like. I'm not going to not
Yeah.
eat. I eat lots of chocolate, so
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a benefit.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So
Good.
yeah, it is a really difficult one. It's something that we're
Yeah.
in my cycling climbing chat, we kind of try and not talk about, because yeah, everyone has their own views on it, and everyone. But yeah, I think it is staying true to what works for you.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and everyone's just so different. Our bodies are so different. Yeah, like I read the book Raw, which is like women's nutrition, and that's so useful, because it's like, oh, I don't. A lot of women are eating like men, and I probably overeat some of the time because
Mm.
I'm like
Mm.
eating the same as my partner, but I'm like, hold on. I'm a lot
Yeah.
lighter than him. Why am I just eating the same meal as him? Like, you know, like. But obviously,
Yeah.
then I train a lot. Sometimes it does make sense for me to be eating the same meal as him because I'm burning more. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just adapting it to what you want to do, realizing everyone's individual and different. Yeah, the more I'm playing around with my food a lot, like trying to see if I've got sort of like intolerances to stuff as well at the moment, just to increase my energy levels. So there's so much you can do. Like I think focusing on health, like we kind of get obsessed with like standing on the scales, but actually I think it like for me, I've just been like, actually, I'm just going to try and just get as healthy as possible and just find what foods make me do that. I'm still on the journey, still on the journey trying to figure that out. But
You got the right philosophy, because it is, if you're just eating good food, healthy
yeah,
food, then your body will find a healthy weight that's comfortable for you, especially with your activity. And if you're doing a lot of activity, your hunger is going to be increased, so naturally you're going to eat more to compensate for the exercise you're doing. But that's only a byproduct of the activity you're doing. If you're not doing as much activity, you probably won't be eating as much as well. So
yeah,
I think it's just listening to your body. If you're hungry, eat, but make sure you're eating predominantly natural food, plenty of fruits and vegetables, lean meats, and healthy fats, and
yeah.
enjoy a treat here and there. And that's it, really, isn't it? Yeah, hopefully, to try and make it too complicated is always sometimes people looking for quick fixes or little, added bonuses that they could maybe add to their diet. But you've got to get the fundamentals correct first, and then you'll be fine. So,
Yeah.
and so I think, yeah, definitely is a really good valid point that you've mentioned, especially with women, where it can be a bit more of an issue around weight. And I like the fact that you're not talking about weight individually or advising each other. You just, if people want advice, I suppose you can talk to each other openly, but just focusing on what's right for you and what's comfortable is really valid. Yeah. And what would you say from a female perspective? My girlfriend, she trains in a gym. She's into a lot of hiking, but how do you find your training is affected around your period cycle? If you don't mind me asking, because obviously that will play a big role in terms of your energy and your rest, and how much you can perform, and obviously being aware of that and understanding that, so you're not maybe too hard on yourself when you can't train as well as maybe you could do because of obviously that issue. Is that something you're quite conscious of while you're training as well?
Yeah, still learning a lot about that. There's certain
Mm.
phases where kind of like leading up to my menstruation, I find that like I can go long. I can do like loads of long rides, but if I try and do intensity, my heart rate, I'm like, why it's on 100 and like if I get to about 170 something for me, I'm like, it should be going over that 180 if I'm doing intensity. I'm like, why is it not doing that? And then I learned, that's because of my hormones. And now I'm just more gentle on myself. And I'm like, if it does get to 180, I'm like, whoa. um, yeah, so I'm just kind of just learning that like, and actually, it's when I'm stressed, it gets worse. Like my heart rate will just not go that high. So if I manage my stress levels through the stressful bit, when my hormones are going to be like really crazy, then I actually find my training's actually way better, which is easier said than done because life just likes to throw random things. You can't always just eliminate stress. But just trying to be a bit more on top of like eating. I eat so much through that phase and try not to binge. Like I try to eat more vegetables, more kind of like whole grains. Gives me so much more energy. So it's just spending a bit more time preparing food, which I'm generally really rubbish at. But in that phase, I'm like, okay, spend more time. And then I'm monitoring things. So I'm generally quite good once as soon as that luteal phase is done. I'm then like normally fine. I'm great. I'm strong. But everyone's different. Some people are like, oh, it's like day 3 I start to get into, and it can be different each month as well. Some months because of the stress, I'm terrible and I'm like, oh, I still feel rubbish. And then other months, I don't notice the up and downs as much. So yeah, it's really individual and it's even different for you each month, depending on what's going on. Yeah, and certain people like have like ovulation legs, so they just lose. And I've had that when I've been racing really intensely. I just lose all power for a couple of days, and it's around my ovulation. I go, it's that. Okay,
Okay.
but it doesn't make
Yeah.
me not train. It just makes me it makes sometimes I do. I'm like having a couple of days off here, but it's just being aware of that. So it doesn't need to
Yeah.
take over your life, and it doesn't have to be an excuse. Because I try not to like go, oh, it's an excuse, so that's why I'm rubbish. I'm like, no, it's more knowledge, which means I've got more knowledge to make me, adapt and work with.
Mm.
But yeah, I used to be in races using this excuse, oh, I'm not very good today because my hormones are all funny. I'm like, no, don't do that, don't do that. It's risky territory doing that. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
definitely done that. But yeah, my new
That's
motto
good.
this year is no excuses.
So it's just being a bit more kinder to yourself based on those factors, isn't it?
Yeah,
And understanding that your body has, is going through a lot of other challenges. So maybe you need to give it a bit more breathing space to focus on those first before you can, achieve the other goals that you're aiming for at the same time, I
yeah,
suppose.
exactly.
Yeah. And is there a lot more support and sort of awareness around that within female cycling now, and especially the races you go to, and
Yeah.
increasing that exposure? Yeah.
Yeah, I talk about it
Yeah.
among friends. Like even my coach, some of my previous coaches have, asked that, and like I'll offer it up if I'm like, oh, I'm just really not doing well, and I think it's hormonally. They'll be like, oh,
Mm.
that's interesting. What can we do here? And yeah, I think most coaches, even male coaches nowadays, are reading
Mm.
up about this and how it can affect
Mm.
performance and adapting training around that. Um,
Mm.
yeah, because more knowledge is, more power. Really, you
Yeah.
just get to, you get to, adapt things and personalize it even more to the athlete. So it is important to
Mm.
be
Yeah, it's good.
doing.
And when you said about stress as well, how do you manage that day to day
Mm.
around the cycling? And do you have sort of good support regards to managing that? Is there any other techniques that you implement to help manage stress aside from just getting out and riding your bike?
Yeah, up and down. One thing I like to try, I'm trying really a lot more is getting to yoga classes. I used to do YouTube for like a couple of months. I just do 10 minutes in the morning on
Mm.
YouTube. Like yoga with Cassandra is my favorite, but a lot of people do yoga with Adrian. That's like amazing.
Yeah.
Just 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
now I'm actually doing a breathwork class every couple of weeks. I just go along to that, and yeah, I'm learning about like Wim Hof breathing. Again, lots of that's on YouTube, so it can be actually very accessible. I read a book about mindfulness and just like and the power of now, which is like just
Mm.
being present, which blew my mind. I was like, oh, and like being around kids, I'm like, they're so present. How do they do this? How do I get to be like that again? It's just I'm just slowly trying to incorporate some of this stuff into my life. Because yeah, racing
Yeah.
is intense. Trying to have a
Yeah.
job as well, depending on what boss you've got and what I don't know month end. I do accounting, so I've got month end stresses, and I don't know, like yeah, it can get really intense at times, and just learning how to breathe can be really helpful. Just also like when I'm tense and I haven't stretched, I'm just like,
Mm.
you know. Um, I played around with taking ashwagandha, which is like a herbal kind of supplement, which helps with reducing anxiety and also helps with focus. So, like in a road race, we need that extra focus, you need to be a bit calmer. I found that really beneficial. But yeah, I do periods on it and off it, and then I'm trying to with like I'm having a period off it now and trying to be like, right, okay, I don't want to rely on this. I need to find ways myself to manage my stress because I've definitely struggled with that. Like COVID actually brought that out of me weirdly. Yeah, I got quite a lot of anxiety after I had COVID. So I'm just kind of retraining my body and actually doing like low intensity cycling really helps, like zone 2 and zone 3. I found like I hate zone 3. I shouldn't say that. My least favorite zone. But yeah, and then actually going out and doing that, and actually I found it really calm because you start finding this like peace with it. So yeah, I don't know. There's some weird. But yeah, what I struggle with when I get ill and I'm like, what do I do with myself? So I've been starting to read and just I don't know. I might playing with the idea of getting into knitting or something. So just
Yeah.
doing something creative can be really great for managing stress. So.
Good. So you haven't tried the cold therapy that Wim Hof
Oh,
advises as well yet?
I'm doing a bit of that. Yeah, I kind
Yeah,
of put my head under the water, and I even like hold my nose and I shake, and it like releases a bit of trauma.
yeah,
Yeah, and I went along to like a yoga and breathing thing, and then we went into the cold. It's in Clevedon. Into the cold late in the morning. Oh,
yeah.
and I was like, I'm one of those like because I've got Raynaud's, like I have quite poor circulation, so like I was like, everyone's like, breathe. I'm like, I'm trying. And everyone was like, you did it. When I got in, and because I was going, I'm not sure I'm going to get in. It's so cold. Like, the sun's not
Mm.
out. I'm not sure I'm getting in. I'm not sure. And then I was like, fine. I'm competitive. So I was like, fine. Put my leg in. I'm fine. I'll keep going. And like, yeah, I did get in. So I have done a bit of that. Yeah, I've tried to get in the sea a bit. Yeah, uh, if I'm ever near the sea, I'm like, right, I'm gonna try and get in. But it's hard. My strategy is breathing out at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely worked. I mean, I've been doing Wim Hof for about 3+ years
Mm,
now, and just a daily cold shower. And then if I'm away,
nice.
I can get to a sea.
Yeah.
We did a couple of sea dips while in Devon this weekend, and that
Nice.
was just amazing. It's good. It's definitely really helped me. I think it's alongside all those other tools, adding them together and having as many tools at your disposal as possible. I think that's the key, really, rather than just relying on one.
Yeah.
So
Got to
yeah,
try various things. Find what like cold. I'm rubbish at cold, but I'm still like easing it. I'm still trying to play with it. Yeah.
yeah,
Occasionally, yeah, I
yeah,
was having cold showers at the end of my shower, but
yeah,
yeah, sometimes when I've got the intensity with cycling, I'm like, I can't face it.
yeah,
But no,
exactly.
it is really beneficial when you are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned the last couple of points, Maddie, but you mentioned you had COVID. Was that quite a bad COVID that you had then, in terms of
Yeah,
being quite poorly during that period, or?
yeah. I had long-lasting symptoms after it. Like COVID wasn't that bad for me. Like, I didn't get it that
Mhm.
bad. Kind of like maybe normal or even less
Was
than
this
normal.
was this quite early on
Yeah, a
when
couple of
COVID
years
happened as well?
ago, I'd managed maybe a couple of months without it, and then I got it, and then yeah, I just had this really bad fatigue. I had brain fog. Like, we were,
Mm,
a lot of people working from home, and I was just on Zoom, and my brain just went empty, and I was like, what? And my blood pressure went up, and I was like, this is really weird. And and I just was really struggling with like any sort of stress. My brain would just go empty. So yeah,
mm,
what they call brain fog, and yeah, and that came with lots of anxiety. Like any little stress, I'd be like, "Ugh." And so I've been having to like really find ways to manage that. And I don't know, I literally can't just figure out if it was because my lifestyle was going that way anyway. Like, I'd had loads of stresses and I hadn't been dealing with them. That when I got COVID, it just was like the last push over the edge, or if it
mm,
was that literally my body changed from COVID. Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I'm sure lots of doctors don't know what's going on. But yeah, something quite significant did change in me. Also, I think being my lifestyle change, being indoors a lot. A lot. I
mm,
really struggled with actually coming out of COVID. I was quite comfortable going
mm.
into it. I was like, cool, this is fine. I don't mind. Like, I did miss my friends a bit, but I was like, I got to see
Yeah.
the odd person on a ride. That I really like one-to-one time. So that was
Mm,
it's actually coming out of it and being like, oh my gosh, I have to be like, I struggled more with that. So yeah, I don't know how much of it was lifestyle, how much of it was probably a bit of a mixture of both. So yeah,
yeah. That's
it's
good.
tough, and I've been messaging
Mm,
anyone that's got, oh, vitamin D is apparently really good. Like, some people I know have been having injections, like vitamin D injections. I just try and get as much sun as I can. This last weekend, I was like, yes, this might help me if I get COVID again.
Well, just a daily supplement is really
Yeah,
simple.
that's
Just a
it.
daily bit, especially during the winter
Yeah,
months. That's all you need, really. So
yeah.
yeah, it'd be pretty good. But you sort of coming over, you got over that now, and you're generally back to sort of full fitness again. And
Yeah, things are just different. It's just different. Like, I kind of relate
yeah,
it to like almost like similar to chronic fatigue, where
mm,
you can manage it, but it's probably always like an underlying thing. So I've just got to be monitor it. I train a lot, actually less than I used to,
yeah,
but luckily I have a lot of years of training behind me, so I think that kind of helps. But yeah, you just have to respond to, yeah, and I know other people that are really excelling in the sport that either have chronic fatigue themselves or have had
mhm,
long COVID. So I'm like, I'm not giving up all hope just because
yeah,
my winters can get a bit. I seem to pick up colds a lot more than other people, and yeah, when I get COVID, it's quite bad. But then,
mm,
yeah, I'm spending a bit more time abroad this year, just trying to I'm having a bit of a career break and just trying to like, yeah, just change things and get a bit more sun and
yeah,
see if that will mean I
yeah,
get a decent winter this year, because I haven't for the last two winters. So yeah, it just meant that when I was racing, very much the first few races were like almost training and just getting in. So I would like less
mm,
expectations of doing well, just like, right, I'm just here to see where my body's at. yeah, so I'd kind of like start the season a bit later in terms of like
Yeah.
getting results. But yeah, just again, just adapting to what
Yeah.
works.
And definitely spending the winters abroad is the dream, and be a bit more. Just the colder weather is not the best for our bodies in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's you've got? You mentioned that you are sort of maybe taking a career break and going to Spain and stuff. What's exciting? What's on the horizon for you over the next year or so? What everyone can be looking out for in regards to races and performance for yourself? What's on the horizon then?
Yeah, so I kind of had a bit of like while the COVID was happening, I had a bit of a burnout from my job. So I was like, right, this winter, I'm gonna take some time off. And it's coincided well with kind of getting into this team because I was like, cool, I can just get some decent, hopefully decent winter miles in, and then I can focus on that. With my work, yeah, I've been part time over the summer, which has obviously really helped with managing kind of my stress and a bit of recovery. Still a lot, even working, yeah, because I've been working 3 days a week. So yeah, I think when I come back from Spain, I'll probably pick up a part time job again. I think because I'm a bit older now, I've got to a place where I've worked kind of a little bit up the career ladder that I can just about. It's not, like I'm not making loads of money, but I can kind of get by working part time. So I definitely feel fortunate in that sense, that I can do that. But yeah, so I'm off to Spain. I'm waiting. My sister's actually due. She's heavily pregnant at the moment, so she's due next week. So I'm waiting around for that, and then I'm off in November for a month. Come back for Christmas, and I'll go back out for probably about
Yeah.
6 weeks. So
Yeah.
nice, kind of mix it up, get a little bit of Swift training in when I'm back here as well, because I do like,
Yeah.
and I just like the variety. So it'd be nice.
And then you'd be cycling over in Spain as well, sort of training most of the
Yeah,
time.
so probably back to Spain. Yeah, out in the new year. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great
Yeah, exciting.
out there.
Yeah, exciting times, yeah. And what's any races next year you're looking forward to, and what are you looking forward to in terms of the cycling aspect, in terms of your career the next year, and what things you're aiming for? Any goals you're aiming for?
I think there's still a lot of like unknowns with the team because it's like first year. One thing they got kind of an invite to do the Tour de Ardèche, and they were like, Maddie, that would suit you perfectly. Quite hilly, quite a lot of attrition. 7 days. Oh, and I'm just like, gosh, I've got to get fit for that. And that's at the end of August. It was boiling hot, so I'm like, also need to get some heat training. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for that. And then yeah, I don't know, we might do things like yeah, just like more stage racing, um, women's tour sort of thing. Like, yeah, see what kind of comes out of our plans. Yeah, I really like loads of the Nat A's, like the hilly ones, like Lancaster Grand Prix. Like, got pretty decent. It was my first top 20 at a national this year. I was really happy with that. I was on
Yeah.
my own. None of my teammates could make it. So also being solo was like a really big accomplishment for me. So I'd love to get do even better there. And I just absolutely love that race. It's just like
Yeah.
nice scenery, nice people, just really nice setup. Like the finish area is really really beautiful, and yeah. Um, but yeah, so I'm still excited to do any of the national races. The Nat Champs this year was really hilly, and I love that race. And next year they're doing a similar loop in the spring, so I'm really excited for that one. I'm hoping I can have some decent fitness getting into that after my winter, and yeah, so that will be quite a key race to start the year. But yeah, the plans to go to Belgium quite early in March, which
Yeah.
might not suit me massively because it's probably gonna be quite flat, but it will just be really good exposure. Just being, working on my some areas that I'm not fully comfortable in is just getting more confident on wheels. And yeah, like the Nat Champs was insane. Like world tour riders just like clipping my handlebar, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like how was that a gap? Like the girl,
I know.
I can't remember who it was, but because I was like absolute gassed, but put her hand up and say sorry. And she was like, "You say not really a
Yeah.
gap," but I still went through it, and I was like, "Gosh, that is the first time I had someone get that close to me on a bike." But it was a great experience, even that one little
Yeah.
experience. But yeah, the rest of the race was still like really compact. Yeah, just being around them, I was hooked after that. I was like, I want to do more of this, which is why I was like, really want to go on the continent because it's just. I got to the end of that race. I was like, I had the best day ever.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just want more of that.
And that's the whole thing. If you're enjoying the whole process, you're enjoying the events, even though there's challenging times,
Yeah.
we all enjoy those hard rides, but you come back still smiling, don't you? Which is
Yeah.
the main thing. So that's brilliant. Yeah. And one final point as well before we wrap things up. But anybody listening to this or watching this, looking to get into cycling, especially as a female and trying to get more females into the sport, it's definitely growing with the exposure, which is fantastic. But what would your advice be if someone was thinking about starting cycling or wanted to get into cycling a little bit more, if they're just on the fences playing around with it?
Um, yeah, I think there's more women getting into sport. Obviously, in the remoter places, it's harder. But even like I go out of, I'm quite used to going out of just guys, and they are generally quite supportive.
Mm,
Um, yeah, yeah, I think yeah, just go for it. Yeah, I got into it because a mate was like, "Oh, I'm going to try this club. Do you want to come along?" So yeah, you can just reach out to a club. You can, depending on where you are. Like in London, I had loads of choices, and so I just
mm,
went with Lee Valley, which yeah had similar values to mine. Just kind of just keep it simple, go out for a ride, nothing complicated, and it's just yeah, it's yeah, no looking back now. Like yeah, I was a bit nervous turning up, going, I have no idea how fast I'm gonna go. Like no idea what, if I'll be able to do that mileage. And it's so much easier
mm,
being in a group. If you're
yeah,
worried, just be like, I'm just gonna sit at the back, take lots of
yeah,
food with you.
yeah.
Yeah, even having energy powder in my drink, I used to not do that. That goes a long way. um, yeah, so if you're worried about the mileage, just yeah, honestly, just eat loads. Treat yourself to a coffee or a Coca-Cola or something at the cafe stop. But yeah, I just think yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, or just reach out to a fellow female cyclist, and I'm sure they'll
Yeah, yeah, good.
yeah.
And what if people wanted to follow your journey and maybe get in touch with you? What would be the best sort of social media or platform
Yeah,
to?
I mainly use Instagram, so you can
Yeah,
just yeah get me on uh, Heywood Maddie, spelt completely how you wouldn't expect to spell my name, but
yeah,
but yeah, you can find me on there, and yeah, I'm always happy to answer any questions.
yeah, brilliant. Well, Maddie, we'll leave it there. I'll put the links to them contacting you if anybody wants to reach out in the comments or the description to this show. But it's been really a real great pleasure getting to know you, getting to having a good chat, and really fantastic that you're doing so well and things are sort of moving forward. And excited to see how things turn out next year. And thanks for sharing all your knowledge and tips on climbing and just getting more women into the sport as well. It's been great. So really appreciate it.